Hi, welcome to Behind the Badge. I'm Chief Alan Rodbell of the Scottsdale Police Department. With me is Ms. Chris Fasal, our community liaison.
I like the miss part.
Yeah.
I always like that miss part.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
So, we're actually doing a Spanish language Citizens Academy this week, and we're dividing up in like 3 segments. I just came back from that. Kind of exciting. We're going to get lots of feedback from the community.
Yes.
Things we can do to improve. And one already I got this morning was doing something with our youth.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. But cool. The reason I say that is because you mentioned the Ms. and they call me El Jefe.
Oh, they did?
Now, I don't know if they call me fat or not. I don't know what that is.
No, that means El Presidente.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
That's the honcho.
Yeah, I've been called a lot.
We call you honcho, too.
Anyway,
so it's not anything new.
Just an aside. So,
yes.
So welcome. So we finished up our own Citizens Academy.
Right.
Class 57, which means close to 30 years.
Yes.
Of Citizens Academies.
Oh, that's why the miss part's so important.
and then at the same time, we've got the next one being planned for
March 1st through April 19th. And actually, one of our guests I helped with get them going on that Spanish Citizens Academy, and they kind of followed the format. So I'm really glad that it's going now, because I know they were working on it for a while. So that's great.
It's working out really well.
Yeah,
and we should get some really nice feedback from folks.
Perfect.
And we did it a little differently. We did it in 3 segments versus
like 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Correct.
So
correct.
We'll get some feedback.
Yeah, and then you have to start somewhere, because then that's how we started our program so many years ago.
Yes.
You just keep adding on to it and taking away from it. So you're welcome to come and check it out. It's going to be another great class.
Sounds good. This starts the holiday season. We've got Thanksgiving coming up in the near future already. And
Christmas
then
is here almost.
And Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and New Year's, and just rocks and rolls all of a sudden. This is our season, so see a lot more traffic.
Yes, and you can tell
careful.
already.
Yeah, big difference.
As you saw the freeway yesterday or the day before, it was really bad, and so people are here, people are back.
Sounds good. So be careful out there. Today we've got a really interesting program. We've got like 3 different segments going up, sort of like
very important
things are happening currently, some new information, as opposed to talking about the organization. We're going to talk about what's happening out in the community.
Correct.
And some initiatives we've taken. So with that, why don't you introduce our guests?
Sure. I would love to. Lieutenant Candler is next to me, Lieutenant Myers, and Officer Travis Kirby. So
welcome everybody to our show.
Thank you, Chief.
As I mentioned, we're going to talk about 3 different topics, and so I think when we talk about this, if you wouldn't mind, because the audience is very interested in who works in the police department. So tell us a little about yourselves and where you currently are assigned, and sort of a little bit of your background before we talk about the initiatives that you're involved in. So Lieutenant Candler, why don't you start, please?
All right, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chris. I'm Lieutenant Carrie Candler, and I've been in law enforcement for 26 years. I'm currently assigned as the executive officer down at our McKellips district, and in that role have a lot of contact with the community. Been very fortunate to be involved in the Spanish Community Engagement Series and getting that up and running, so that's been exciting. And I'm here today to talk about our Arizona Angel Initiative, so when we get to that part, I'll talk about that.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Lieutenant Myers.
Thank you, Chief. Ma'am, thank you for having me.
He always calls me ma'am.
I do.
He's so sweet.
So, I'm glad you like it. My name is Lieutenant Tom Myers. I am the lieutenant with Special Investigations here in the Scottsdale Police Department. The Chief allows me to participate in that job. I'm really appreciative of that.
Why don't you tell us a little about what Special Investigations is, because nobody knows.
Special Investigations consists of 4 units here in the Scottsdale Police Department. It consists of our DEA task force that we partner with several federal partners to combat narcotics here in the Scottsdale area, and of course Maricopa County. And then we have our drug enforcement unit. We also have our criminal intelligence unit, and we have our Homeland Security unit. And those are the 4 units that are in the Special Investigations section.
All very current topics, and we're going to talk a little bit about the opioid crisis.
Yes, sir.
In just a moment. So thank you, Tom. Good
having
you here. Travis, welcome. How are you doing?
Well, thank you, Chief.
Good.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Travis Kirby. I'm the Crime Prevention Officer of the McKellips District, and I've been with the Scottsdale PD since May of 2000. Spent 8 years in the K-9 unit. I've been a narcotics trained officer, terrorism liaison officer, and the crime prevention officer for the last 3 years in the McKellips District.
And you're going to talk about the drug drop-off, the drop-in, drop-off, what do you call it? Drop boxes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Drop boxes.
And we're going to talk about that, the availability to the public.
Yes.
In fact, why don't we go ahead and start talking about that, Travis, if you
Yeah.
don't mind. So kind of explain what the program, how the program is designed, and how a citizen can take advantage of the program, please.
So what we want to do is we want to help the public get rid of unwanted medication, expired medication, unused medication, so that way it can't fall into the hands of especially our young people and people that would use that nefariously. And so we have prescription drop boxes at 3 of our stations, which I'll mention here in a second. And so what that allows the public to do is to bring in these medication, the medication that they're expired or unwanted or not used, and we will dispose of it for them. We've just tweaked some of the procedures lately, just for safety reasons and stuff like that, so it's safer for the public and safer for us as we impound this stuff for destruction, and to kind of minimize some of the excess stuff that we've been bringing in that we don't take. And so there's a drop box at our McKellips district, at the Via Linda district, and then at the Foothills district. The downtown district does not have a drop box, primarily because of the access control issues with the cord and stuff like that, because the cord is in the adjoining building. So so residents can bring in anything from prescription lotion, over-the-counter medication, pills, tablets, liquids in the original container, a sealable container, and what they'll do is contact the station officer at the station officer's desk. The station officer will provide a sealed bag to give to them. In the past, we've taken prescription pill bottles. We're not doing that anymore. We're asking that our residents actually empty all the pills into the bags, seal everything, and then hand it to the station officer, and then the station officer will dispose of it in the drop box. So we're no longer taking pill bottles. We don't take syringes. We've never taken syringes. Yes. And what we found is that when the boxes are in the lobby, and there's a lot of people that unknowingly will deposit syringes in there, which obviously creates a hazard for people. So so we've just tightened the screws on the procedure a little more. Anything in bubble packs, like tablets and bubble packs, it doesn't have to be taken out of the bubble packs or the foil packs. It can just be put in the bag. People can also bring a sealed bag in themselves. So a sealed bag would be anything like
you mean like a
Ziploc bag.
Ziploc bag.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they can empty all their pill bottles into a Ziploc bag at home, just seal the Ziploc on it and bring it in.
Perfect.
So we're just not taking the bottles themselves anymore and stuff like that.
So why is it so important to dispose of them this way? Why can't I just throw them down the toilet or throw them in the trash? What's the problem with doing that?
Well, my understanding, like with that, some of our older generation just flush things down the toilet. Is there's a problem with some of that medication getting into the reclaimed wastewater and stuff, and we use a lot of that reclaimed wastewater for golf courses and such here. But we really want to have a controlled method to how the unused medication is destroyed. And so throwing it in the trash or flushing down the toilet, it's just not a controlled method. And so the safest way to do it, it's a free service, is just to bring it to us so we can dispose of it properly.
Okay. And you're not going to take my name and information when I come in to drop off this? Is it all anonymous?
It is all anonymous.
And that's probably why they didn't put the pill bottles, because when you look at the pill bottles, they have a lot of name and information on there. And another thing that they should probably do with those pill bottles is take off your name, rip that or cut that off, because it does have information about you. So when you dump the pills in the Ziploc bag, you should still take your label off of that pill bottle.
Well, you bring that up, and it's something that we actually would do. We would take all these pill bottles in the boxes, and we would actually take the labels off, put them all together, empty the pills into the bags before they were impounded for destruction, and we would end up shredding the labels on the pill bottles themselves.
Correct.
And so not only is that a time-consuming process, but then we have tons and tons of pill bottles that have to be destroyed as well. So this is just a much cleaner way of doing it. It's more efficient and it's safer for everyone.
Absolutely.
So part of the bleed over here between guests is the fact that so many people can get a prescription that they need, to get them through some issue. And then because they don't use the prescription entirely, it sits in their medicine cabinet, and that's where it can be accessed by people to use it for all the wrong reasons. And I think that sort of bleeds over to some of what we're seeing in the opioid crisis, not just in Scottsdale, but nationally. This is a national crisis that is just now, we're starting to see more and more evidence of it here in our community. And so if people dispose of the drugs that are in their medicine cabinets this way, and there's no opportunity for them to be abused some other way. And so I see the bleed over, obviously, and I guess that brings us to you, Lieutenant, in terms of like what are we seeing in our community in terms of opioids and fentanyl and carfentanil and others.
Well, both nationally and in our community, sir, and I think Scottsdale's positioned rather well with regards to the opioid crisis thus far. It's a crisis that's been recognized now by the president, recognized by the governor. I know that you've been fighting to arm us in this crisis for years at a legislative level, and trying to get us Narcan, Naloxone. I always forget how to say it, that version, and that's been something that you've been working towards and have achieved here with multiple saves now. With the use of that medication, we're able to administer to people. There's several reasons for the opioid crisis. I think that you not only have the prescription side, but also the illicit drug side. And if you look at the crisis, now lethal drug overdoses have become the leading cause of accidental death in America. And that's been that way for several years now. So if you look at opioids, they're 40% of those accidental deaths, or nearly 40%. That is a problem that's shared nationwide. The illicit opioids are a growing problem. The illicit drugs like heroin and heroin and opium, things like that, which would be illicit drugs. So really from the legal side and from the illegal side, it's a growing crisis. On the legal side, we have people who do get prescriptions. Obviously, these are very addictive substances, and that is going to cause people to often have issues with abuse and with overuse, and that has become, in my opinion, the largest part of this opioid crisis that we're facing, and responsible for the majority of those overdoses. But on the illicit side, I'm sorry?
What is an opioid? Can you just tell us what it is? Because they keep saying opioids, but is it Oxycontin? What is it?
Yes. So on the illicit side, you're going to have heroin, you're going to have opium. On the legal side, you're going to have oxycodone, which I believe can be Oxycontin. You can have Percocet. You also have Vicodin, hydrocodone, which would be Vicodin. There are several, and there's going to be many that I can't even
right, but
know.
Just some that people might know the names of, because opioid, I didn't really know exactly what that encompassed. So.
Absolutely, it's classified as a depressant, but what it is going to manage pain. Okay. And one of the ones that you may have heard about a lot in the media lately is fentanyl. And fentanyl back east on the East Coast is kind of ground zero. New Hampshire, places like that, where they're having extreme problems with fentanyl. For instance, back there, they're having kilo seizures of fentanyl. And that's not uncommon. Here in Scottsdale, to date, we haven't even seized an ounce of raw fentanyl. However, what we do see here, and what you see in fentanyl being now a big part of this problem, coming over the border, we're having counterfeit oxycodone pills.
Wow.
And I think a lot of your drug dealers don't even know what they're selling. They don't know that they're selling fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is 100 times more powerful than morphine and 50 to 100 times more powerful than heroin.
And now there's carfentanil, which is even more powerful than fentanyl. And unfortunately, some of those are being used to cut other drugs. So we don't know, unless you're buying it from a pharmacy, you have no idea what you really are getting. Whether you're getting something that is marked to look like a pharmaceutical pill that came across the border, or manufactured here, or you're getting cocaine laced with fentanyl. I mean, we're seeing all of that.
Wow.
And so you can't trust any of this. And one of the things we want to caution viewers, if they come in contact with something that they suspect might be an illicit substance, don't touch it.
Yep.
You know, one of the things we're seeing is accidental overdoses and poisonings by people just inhaling, being around the product.
Wow.
And so it's very, very dangerous. And that's why we've armed our officers and our employees that work the street and work drug cases and work in labs with Narcan, just because it seems to be the one thing that will at least allow people the time necessary to get to a hospital and get medical care. And so again, caution anybody, if you've got, because now they're selling Narcan over the counter. If you're using it at home for some reason because you think it's okay, I'm over it, you gotta still get to a hospital. It's not long-term solution. It's a short-term fix to get you to the hospital. It buys time.
Absolutely. So several points out of that, Chief. I would start with, when you're dealing with a substance like fentanyl and it's not made in a pharmacy, you have almost like when you're baking a cake and you'll have clumps of sugar here or there, and that piece is going to taste better with more blueberries. Well, with fentanyl, if you get a clump of fentanyl in there when they've mixed it at a non-pharmaceutical grade lab, you're going to have a very potent amount of fentanyl that's going to hit you. They're not looking to kill the customers, but it does often happen because they're obviously not regulated. I lost my train of thought. I had something.
We were talking about the doses
Yeah,
and how the doses in terms of the clumps.
Yeah, and then the Narcan point that you made with taking Narcan. I mean, the Narcan has a less of a shelf life, a half-life. I get my terms mixed up. So it has half the half-life of heroin. So even if it's starting to work, it doesn't mean that you don't have to do that follow-up, because as soon as it expires, that heroin's it's still in your system and it's going to work its way back, or oxycodone or Percocet, any of that will work its way back in and you'll be right back to where you were previously. So yes, if you do take it, you do have to go and administer, get that help.
One of the issues here for us locally is not necessarily illicit use, but we're also seeing people who use it for medical reasons taking too much, either by accident or administered that way. And so we want to caution our viewers also that some of these medications are important for folks in terms of their well-being and their health, but at the same time you have to be cautious that people don't accidentally overdose, because we're seeing some of that in our community as well, especially with folks that are elderly and don't necessarily remember if they took their medication or not, or being administered by somebody else.
And it's fairly well known, Chief, that 3 out of 4 kids, 3 out of 4 teenagers, adolescents who come into contact with a opioid, legal opioid, that's coming out of the house. So back to what Travis was talking about, very important to get those drugs to the drop boxes,
out of the house,
disposed in an appropriate way, because it's going to save our children.
Absolutely.
What are the hours the boxes are available?
So because they're in the lobbies, it's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay.
And
we want to encourage people, again, to go to the medicine cabinets. If you haven't used it, you're not going to use it, put it in a bag, get it to the lobby, and get rid of it.
And if there's questions that viewers have, they can go to the PD's website to look at all the items that are accepted and items that aren't accepted, and they can of course just go into the station officer and ask, and the station officer will say, this is what we can take, this is what we can't take, and we'll help them through the process.
Okay. Thank you. So the Angel Initiative, how does that apply to the things we've been talking about?
Well, really everything that you all have mentioned kind of segue into the Angel Initiative program. And by that, what I mean is that we are finding that some of the drugs, opioids that our youth are getting addicted to do come from the house. But the other part of that is sometimes people are injured playing sports or whatnot, and part of their prescription happens to be hydrocodone or Oxycontin, and then as the kids take them, they realize that over time they become addicted to them. So the biggest age range, or the targeted age range right now, is from 25 to 34-year-old males and females. They're finding have the highest amount of either heroin addiction or the overuse of opioids. And in that research, they're finding that it actually began years prior to that. So part of the Angel Initiative program is, as Lieutenant Myers discussed, that our governor recognized this along with our president, but our governor recognized this a year ago and signed it into legislation, and they brought over from East Coast Police Department the Angel Initiative. And the basis for the Angel Initiative is that it's run out of the Governor's Office of Youth, Faith, and Family. And the purpose of it is to give people who may be addicted an opportunity to come in and bring their paraphernalia, their drugs, things they haven't used, and they can come into the police department and they can turn all of those items over, and we will impound those drugs, and then we will, as a police department, assist them in partnering them up with an angel. And an angel is what the governor's office is facilitating as far as finding members of the community within Scottsdale who will volunteer their time to assist people who may be addicted and want some help. They will assist them along their path of recovery. The people that come in that want help, there are certain requirements that they have to meet in order to be part of the program, but they're all very easy to accomplish. You have to be a member of the community, you must be 18 years of age, you have to have a valid form of ID, and you can't have any previous felony convictions. But if you meet those criteria and hopefully that particular age range, you're looking for some type of help, and you have a fear that you may be going to jail or you may be arrested, this is an opportunity to come in, bring us all of your material, we will impound it, and then we can partner you with an angel and hopefully put you on that path to recovery. We here in Scottsdale are very fortunate. We have police crisis intervention specialists that really have kind of been doing this very model for many years now. So this really is a force multiplier for the Scottsdale Police Department in that it gives us an opportunity to partner with the governor's office, use our community resources as far as resources in Scottsdale that are willing to provide beds for recovery, as well as members of our community that will assist these people through their recovery process.
I think what's important for people to understand is oftentimes the people that are in this situation, and really the situations we've talked about, got into that situation really because of the injury that you mentioned or medical need. I know I've had some dental work done and I'm prescribed a narcotic drug, and I use one to get through the first night and then the rest of them sit in the medicine cabinet. But for some people, they may require to take more than that one a night and actually not recover as quickly as some other people do, and find themselves asking for another script, and before you know it, they're on that road to addiction. Through I'll say no fault of their own, there's some choices being made, but clearly they get caught up in that experience and they really are crying for help. So getting into this initiative sounds pretty positive.
Yes.
If I want to be an angel, how do I get to be an angel? How's that work? What kind of people are we looking for to do that kind of work?
Kind of the same thing. There are certain requirements that you have to meet in order to be an angel. We're looking for members of the community. You have to be willing to volunteer your time. You also have to be willing to facilitate getting these members to the community resources, and then kind of being with them every step of the way to answer questions, or to be to really liken it to almost Alcoholics Anonymous.
I was going to say, it's kind of like being a sponsor.
Yeah, you have a
in
sponsor, and
Alcoholics,
that's the resource for trying to get through the hard times, because
Right.
we know that's not an easy task to overcome addiction, and so that's kind of their main role, is to be that sounding board and try to help the people to get through the entire recovery process.
So is there some training involved, or do you have to have experience?
There is some training involved. That's where the governor's office really steps in, is they provide, it's a 24-hour block, and they put them through training, and then once that training is completed, then they can be a member, be an angel, and then that would be a resource for us to contact.
Sounds good. You wouldn't know the number by chance?
We're still kind of working through that portion of it, as far as in Scottsdale who we're identifying as the angels, but that should be rolling out here very soon. We're just waiting on one final meeting with the governor's office to have that happen.
Okay, but between now and then, we can always have them contact either yourself or PCIS?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll put that number up as well for folks.
And I think I just want to throw something out with you, Travis, too, as I'm sure when you do crime prevention talks and things, for people that are selling their house, it's really important that you take all your medications out of your cabinets and hide them or something, because I understand that there are people that are actually going to look for houses for sale, and what they're doing is going through cabinets and taking medications out of there. So I'm sure that you have heard that, and I'm sure the real estate people have talked about this, but just to shout out to our audience to make sure that if you're selling your home, to take precaution. Is that correct?
Yes, that's some great advice. Yeah. Great advice. So I want to also advise folks, and Tom, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but I'm sure you know the information. Our major issue here really right now is not opioids and fentanyl and carfentanil and those issues, although we have to be on guard because things do travel across country. Our trends right now are still the issue with methamphetamine and barbiturates and other drugs as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you give us a little bit on that?
Absolutely. I think probably your biggest illicit drug still, what's most ubiquitous out there is going to be marijuana.
Okay.
Still, and despite the laws and legislation changing and probably changing in the future, whichever direction it goes, that's still the one that we run into the most, the one that we say here that we have the most exhibits of, and that's how many times we come into contact with it here in the department. But I'd say methamphetamine is going to still be, in my opinion, our biggest issue. We have, for instance, with opioids, we come into contact with opioids, illegally used opioids, probably 250 times a year here, where on average for the last 3 or 4 years, where we have come into contact with methamphetamine 600 times. An exhibit that could be a big seizure by the DEA group of 100 pounds, or an exhibit could be just a little teener bag out on the street.
So even though we're controlling the precursors, at the pharmacies, we're still seeing this coming into the country from other places and landing here in Arizona.
Finding labs anymore, clan labs, as we used to call them, clandestine labs, you hardly would ever see that. I don't know when the last time we had anything like that in Scottsdale would be, but even nationwide, maybe a little bit still back east in the Midwest. But most all of your methamphetamine and your black tar heroin, which is predominantly used in the Southwest, it's all coming across the border from Mexico. And it's manufactured extremely inexpensively in Mexico. 4 or 5 years ago, $12,000 a pound for methamphetamine. Now it's all the way down to $2,000. It's similar with heroin, although not quite that much of a precipitous decline in price. And that's not really because of supply and demand has changed. It's probably because of the increasing legalization of marijuana. Marijuana was always a big cash crop for the cartels, and now that's shifting, and they're really trying to create addicts by giving lower prices.
Thank you for that whole update.
Yes,
I appreciate
thank
that.
you all for being here today. It was such a great show.
Yeah, it really was. Thank you all. I think
Sorry we had more time.
Yeah, this is really a current event,
Yes.
and so people have been asking these questions. A lot of I won't say misinformation, but people are coming to their own conclusions based on the information available. So thank you so much, and thanks for there's a couple of things here people in the audience and at home can actually do.
Exactly.
There's actually referrals. There's things they can take action in their own homes, and things they can do to make the community safe.
And
So
it's
thank you all.
given me a good opportunity to have some new classes for Citizens Academy, because now I know who I'm going to tap. All 3 of you to talk about those issues, so we have more people in an audience there. So
Perfect.
be prepared for March.
Perfect. Thank you all again so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks for being with us at another edition of Behind the Badge, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Until then, happy holidays
Happy
and be
Turkey
safe.
Day.
Happy Turkey and be safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.